Good morning. It is Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday, February 28th, and this is season 2, episode 19 of the Composite. I am your host, Deanne Battle. Thank you to anybody that has some time to join this morning. And then thanks to anybody that ends up watching the replay. So this is our season finale. Good morning. Yes, it is a really wonderful morning. I'm trying to make it a wonderful morning. We're working on it. And one of the ways I'm doing that is doing this episode. So I'm 2 seasons in, and season 3, there'll be less of a hiatus. Season 1, I think I did 2 or 3 weeks in between seasons. I think I'll have like a 5 to 7 day turnaround. And what I want to do is just use that time to mess with the format a bit, which I've been doing on and off. So things are happening. We're progressing. If you hear heavy breathing, it's my little buddy here. Oh, can't see her. But when I go live, she shows up. All right. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, I'm going to start with 3 random things or seemingly random things, but I'm wondering if they might be connected. Hold on for a second here. So right before I logged on here to Instagram, there was something on X, and I guess Russell Wilson did an interview, and he said something to the effect that God called him to, be with Sierra and help raise Future's son, Future Jr. Apologies, I don't know what the little guy's name is, like his government name. But it's just, I read the headline. Again, it just happened right before I logged on, and I didn't have a chance to read the article, but it's in Complex magazine, Russell Wilson. I'm going to read that shit. Pardon my language. I'm going to try not to curse too much this episode. And then I'll tell you why in a sec. But he's totally trolling the deadbeats and the dusties. Like, it's amazing because, and I've spoken about this before, right? Russell Wilson is like, people love to hate him, men specifically, because, he's corny, he's got no swag, he's no style, he's a simp, right? He just does whatever Sierra tells him to do, or like, so I feel like there's this narrative around Russell Wilson that, he doesn't have any agency in his relationship with Sierra. And they're like, why is he calling Future his son? That's his stepson. He's inappropriate. He's overstepping boundaries. Da, 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 da. He's only overstepping boundaries if his biological father is involved, right? Which I'm not going to disparage Future. I don't know what that co-parenting situation is, but I have seen a couple of comments from Sierra that indicate that it's basically non-existent, like in terms of how much time he's spending, right, with his son. And so with all of that being said, I'm like, oh crap. He's just like, yeah, I'll be that corny guy. I'll be the simp or whatever, oh yeah, God called me to do this. He knows that people are just going to be so irritated with that, and he's leaning into it. So God bless Russell Wilson. I'm feeling that, because I think like we need to have more conversations about what masculine energy brings and what feminine energy brings. But what I don't like is when we're automatically placing someone in, oh yes, oh thank you, yeah, thanks, yeah, I love it for him too, but I hate when we put somebody, so in this case we'll look at Russell Wilson. There's a way in which I feel like society puts him in a feminized position just because he doesn't show up in a stereotypical masculine way, like the negative aspects, if that's making sense. Or just, I know there's something going on with T.S. Madison and Jess Hilarious. And T.S. Madison, I mean, and people have said this about Jess Hilarious before, because she got into a very pointed dispute with members of the trans women community. But people kept being like, oh, like Jess, she looks like a man, she looks like a man, or whatever. And it's used to disparage. And so when we're looking at Russell Wilson, right, his care and tending to Future Junior is feminized, and feminine is negative. And I don't like that, right? Men have the ability to nurture. It doesn't look the same as when women do it, but men definitely have the ability for it. Like I remember, if my mom was away for a weekend or something like that, like if she would go out of town, there would always be that Monday of school when my dad would try to do my hair. He was bad at it, but the care and the nurturing is so important. And so, listen, if Russell Wilson wants to give that to Future, God bless. Like, why is that a bad thing? Now, if you're arguing that he's doing it because he wants clout off of it, I think that that's a little bit separate. But I mean, I think, how long has he been with Sierra and she's been with him? They're going on like 10 years now, right? So that's like a really long game clout chase, if that's the case. I'm just saying. But I also know we don't know him. We don't know what he's like in private. I like to keep space for the unknowing. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm mostly just talking about public persona and the way that, like, he'll do something positive and it's villainized, right? Like, oh, I gave money to Future's, other children because I didn't want them to feel left out when I was giving Future Junior something. And then, people were just in uproar. And then, so it's just like things that on the surface would be positive. I don't necessarily mean him like the private citizen, if that makes sense. I'm talking about the public figure. And so the reason that this was, for me at least, like, an interesting article to see before I hopped on is because two people that I wanted to talk to you about are Michael Threets. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. It's Threets, Michael Threets, and Aaron Bushnell. Now, Michael Threets, he was, it's unfortunate, he was a librarian in Solano County, California. And I don't know anything about the guy. All I know is that, he's got a big smile and even bigger afro. He loves books and he's super positive, tries to, help people. And again, it's a situation. I don't know him personally, but that's all I'm seeing in terms of social media presence. Giving students and children an opportunity to see themselves in the stories that they're reading, supporting, people in libraries in general. And libraries are very special places. I'll get to that in a while. But he quit his job at the library, even though, like, he loved it dearly. I think he was there 10 or 12 years. Because people are harassing him online. They're saying stuff like, oh, you have dark energy, or what does that even mean? What does that mean? And let me collect my thoughts. Here's what I think is happening, right? And I was thinking about this a bit yesterday. The pandemic changed my life. I didn't never go back to quote unquote the way it was. And so March 2020 has basically been like damn near 4 years for me. And I get it, right? Like, if you're not where you want to be, if you're not feeling buoyed by your life choices, and things that are happening to you, it's very easy to go over here and destroy the pretty sandcastle. And that's what I think, Michael Threets, what I think his energy is. It's a pretty sandcastle, right? He is a black male librarian. And there was another librarian on X. I'm sorry that I don't remember his name, but he basically said, oh, Michael is a unicorn, right? There are not that many of us, because the guy speaking was a black male librarian. And then, excuse me, on top of that, he's gone viral times over on, various social media platforms. And so it's like, this is a pretty castle over here. I'm feeling like crap. Let me go crush it. And I feel like that's how people approached him in terms of negative comments. I couldn't even actually go and read those comments because I was like, what miserable would do that, right? And it's not to say, oh, is, he an angel or anything like that, or should he be lionized? No. But a couple of things. One, libraries are really important to me because for a lot of my childhood, like, the library was the only place that I could go. We had, parks down the street from my elementary school and stuff like that. But, from the mid 80s to, almost the mid 90s, like, it was shady. Not every single day, but, just it's a lot of crackheads over there, alcoholics, some sketchy dudes, like, who talk inappropriately to young girls. And so me and the few friends that I had, like, the library was one of the only places that we really felt comfortable and embraced. And not even really by the staff, because the staff didn't even really talk to us, but it was really getting lost in that space, lost in the world of books. And then also, too, the police precinct was across the street. So, it was someplace safe to go after school. And I think about what the me of that time, like how impactful it would have been to have a librarian like Michael. And I'm really angry that bullies took that from kids. Because it's not just the black kids, it's just that energy and love for books that so many people don't have. That frustrates me so much sometimes when I'm teaching. Like, hey, this is a beautiful paragraph, right? Can you close your eyes and see yourself on that beach? And just to have a student tell you, I see nothing. And so someone like him that's holding space for libraries and letting people know that this is going away, like, libraries are really, it's just changing. I'm not going to say, oh, libraries are going away, because I'm not an alarmist. But the first thing that I do when I move, and I've moved a lot in my adult life, the first thing that I do is, I set my boxes down and everything. And, I update my addresses. But as soon as, like, I have some form of mail or identification, I get my library card. Now, how many times have I moved? Oh, goodness. So I moved. I'm just thinking of times I moved where I actually got a new library card. Probably at least 7. And I always do it within the first, like, 5 days, usually, like, when I move. Because that's one of the first things that I want to do is I want to go to that library and I want to see the lay of the land. The library actually tells you a lot about that community and how they invest their resources and what resources that you can get if you're down on your luck, which I've been in before as well. Like, being able to work on a resume for free at the library is helpful. Being able to print it out, take it to job interviews is helpful. tax papers if you can't afford to, have someone do your taxes. I mean, or sometimes like you don't want to pay for that. Which I don't want to make it sound like it's only if you're destitute. But all of that being said, libraries are really important. And then as more things get digitized, those spaces get marginalized. So having Michael as, the one of the bright lights, like fighting against the attempts our culture makes to make libraries redundant, like, is super important. And it just like really disappointed me that he was like, I had to step away from this space because people are just, it's too much, right? And so, we've got him as the literacy crusader, Russell Wilson as the the Justice League of stepdads, doing whatever he's doing. And more seriously, Aaron Bushnell, he is a young man. I believe he was 25 years old, and he self-emulated the other day because he refused to participate in whatever is going on in Gaza. And I say it like that very specifically because I'm not going to argue and quibble with people about the language. I mean, I know what I think I've seen in articles and, videos and images. I have a sense of what I think that I've seen. But then I feel like when you're getting caught up on, can you use a word of war, but technically war is between two militaries, or can you, use the word genocide, but there are technical stipulations around that, war crimes, there are technical, definitions around that, ethnic cleansing. So I think at this point, a lot of people are in an attempt to make this an intellectual exercise, are ignoring all of the people who are suffering and dying. And so he set himself on fire, and then he said, "Free Palestine," and he died. And I was like, whoa, because I'm going to say a couple of things here. Now, my caveat is I'm not endorsing setting yourself on fire. I shouldn't have to say that, but you do, because, internet stuff gets chopped and screwed and just, and people are deliberately obtuse as well. So let's make room for that. I was really shocked, number one, because it's such a brutal way to die. I'm always shocked when I hear of self-emulation. The first time that I heard that it was a thing that people did was when I was in college. And I think it was the class I was taking. I think it was my second time reading The God of Small Things. And we were talking about Arundhati Roy's activism. And someone brought up the topic of self-emulation. I don't know if it was because it was in the novel. I don't remember it being in the novel. But either because it was in the novel or because there was an essay that we were reading that was somehow tangentially connected to it. And I actually raised my hand, asked my professor to re-explain it to me because I couldn't understand. Like, okay, this person they feel so abject and so helpless that it's just like, all I have left to give to this cause is my life. And so it's a shocking thing to know about, that someone participates in, but it's also, I was shocked because I don't think Americans have the heart for it. I mean, and I'm including myself in that, right? Like, I feel, again, especially after the pandemic, I feel like our society is operating in two modes, leisure and panic. And so the leisure, right, anesthetizes you, right, so you don't have to raw dog reality and so you can just like make it through the grind of your regular day. And the panic, are those moments when the veneer gets pulled back and you realize, okay, yeah, our economy is about to tank. Food is too expensive. Rent and interest rates are too high. These student loans are not going to go anywhere. Now I know I'm hearing, I got all of mine forgiving or whatever, da da da. Yeah, like, oh God, I gotta call those people back. Anyway, but I owe a lot of money because I have a lot of degrees. And so I don't think they'll be able to do as much for me as I would hope. But, the panic sets in when you have those moments of, okay, I'm not going to be able to thread the needle this month, or, when the threads that I know I'm hanging by or other people are hanging by just get so thin, right? That's when the panic erupts. So when you live in a society that has two modes, leisure and panic, what Aaron Bushnell did is a real, I mean, I'm not going to say a clarion call, because again, I'm not saying other people need to set themselves on fire. I'm not setting myself on fire, y'all. But it's just, we are, oceans away, and it's very easy, whether it's something happening in Asia, Africa, Europe, so on and so forth, to look in the other direction and go back to the leisure, right? So that's what I started with. The Russell Wilson, that's leisure. But realistically, we're running short on time. And I'm not sure for what. I don't know if it's just economic or existential or, yeah. I mean, yeah, those are the two main things. And I think most things fall into that category. But I feel like I'm not going to put a time on it. But one thing that's been good about the pandemic is, and I'm sorry, I'm like all over the place. It's taught me to lean in more and trust my intuition. And so something in me is saying 6 months from now, our society is going to look quite different than it does at the moment. I mean, that might be election related. That might be economically related. It might be the environment. It might be any number of things. But I'm trying to put myself in the headspace of more awareness. Now, there's some things I'm aware of that I can't do anything about. Like, I'm aware that I need to, I should have an emergency kit and all of that stuff. I don't have the money for it right now. So that's just where I am. But I do have a printout or resources that when, I get a little bit of a few ducats, I can go ahead and, move forward on that part of it. And so let's come back to Aaron Bushnell. He was really telling us that we can't ignore things that are happening off our shores anymore. I don't think we ever should have, but it's America. It happens. And I think if everyone in our society was truly aware and present and active, whether that would be speaking out, doing things on social media or, taking to the streets, I don't think our country would have made it this long. I really think our longevity and cohesion rely on deprivation of resources and deprivation of consciousness, right? Because when you undereducate people and you make libraries unsafe spaces, you make their village that loves them, unsafe spaces. So whether it's a stepdad or another safe adult that loves that child, right? When you're rendering the fabric, right? Someone like Aaron Bushnell that stands in that gap and is like, I don't consent to this. I don't want to be a part of this. I'm going to take myself out of the equation. My regret is that there wasn't in his mind a better way. But his impulse, I think, is honorable, because the thing about self-emulation is, when I was learning about it, I was like, oh, so you're really drawing attention to the fact that your life is not worth more than someone else's. And so I'm sorry that he took that route. But I think the effects of it will increase as time goes on, not decrease. Like, I don't think this is something that, like the 24-hour news cycle will push it away, but I don't think it's going to leave people's minds. I didn't watch the video. I can't see stuff like that anymore. Whether it's a police killing or just people fighting. The only video that was violent that I watched and I was like, I gotta see this stuff, is the boat brawl. Yeah. And my people are from Alabama. I was like, no, I gotta see that. But other than that, I'm not watching these violent videos online. It's just a little too vivid and a little close to home, given how raw the realities are around us. But I think, Aaron Bushnell, his willingness to put himself on the line again, not knowing anything else about him. I hope he was a good person, but nevertheless, I think people are thinking about that, even if they're not talking about it. And the media, or different outlets in the media, trying to say that, oh, it was because he had a mental health issue. But that doesn't negate his disgust and his refusal to harm another human being. Like, that doesn't, reduce it. He was of sound mind and body enough he posted a note on social media before, he did it. And so I think it was more about his personal convictions and less about, oh, look at his dude, he's just crazy. Like, this country is so unserious. So unserious. Like, this young man, he set himself on fire and he stood up for what he believed, right? And rather than really focus on the tragedy of the situation and the awareness that he was attempting to bring to the issue, it immediately goes into, he must have had a mental health issue. Meanwhile, stateside, a former president who is running for president again can say, Black people love me because I have a mugshot. And there's no one questioning his mental health. We're a completely unserious nation. I mean, that's just what it is. Oh, thank you so much. I just, sometimes I feel like I'm getting on here ranting. So thank you. If you get anything out of it, I appreciate it. And so I'm thinking of these three men together, even though they don't have anything to do with each other. Russell Wilson, Michael Threets, and Aaron Bushnell. And I'm just thinking of the ways in which if you're trying to do something positive that has an impact, And then when you get negative attention, how might you transmute that? Now, for Aaron Bushnell, right, he's passed away, he's deceased. So there's not a way for him to absorb the negativity and then maybe push it back out to whoever's sending it to him, or to turn it into something positive. I think Michael is turning it into something positive. He actually, I think, is getting a show on PBS Kids, which I don't have kids, but I would totally watch it if it was on YouTube or like my PBS streaming, whatever. And then Russell Wilson. Now listen, he, was quoting the Bible and stuff when he was talking about his role as a stepdad. And I'm not saying everybody needs to do that, but what I'm saying is we've got this narrative around single mothers in this country that is so toxic. And so, no, it's not toxic. It's actually radioactive. And the reason that I say that is if a society is producing more single parent households, so you're producing more single parent households, and then you are increasing the hostility and it's almost like a witch hunt. The way some of these guys talk about single moms online, if they had the ability to burn them at the stake, I think they would. Is that the new witchery, being a single mom? Maybe, right? If I don't know. Well, you didn't generate the child by yourself, but you've generated this human, you've nurtured them, and you're, to a certain extent, a fully contained entity, right? So mother and child or mother and children. And I think that that's what's so bad about it. But all of that being said, what would it mean if instead of laughing at Russell Wilson, there were certain men who would look at him and say, you know what, like, maybe I'm not Christian, but yeah, what's wrong with me being a part of this young man's village and loving him, serving as a mentor to him, right? Showing him a healthy relationship. Hopefully they have a healthy relationship. Russell and Sierra. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And if people are so concerned about Future's role being usurped, then I would argue that maybe Future can do something different. It would be a different thing if he was an average guy who didn't have the profile and access, right? Because then you could say, oh, Sierra and Russell, they're just kind of steamrolling him and taking his kid. And maybe they still are, I don't know. But I just find it so questionable that, thus far, the worst thing this guy did is, I guess, he got a divorce, he got remarried, had a family, and dudes have all the smoke for him. Not all men, but a lot of men do. So that's just interesting. So yeah, thinking about the three of them, and I had so much that I thought I was going to discuss today. Like those three topics, I was actually supposed to only be like 15 minutes. What should I talk about next? Excuse me. I'm thinking about, in terms of politics, they're already setting it up, as they usually do, to blame black people, especially black men, if Joe Biden doesn't win the election. And I want to address that specifically because I'm really disgusted with it. And it's not new. And I'm sure I've probably talked about it before. But here are the things that are so profound, right? So the Democratic Party, we know, it's been 60 years, right? Really has taken advantage of the black vote. Like, oh, I'll just give them a fish fry or go play basketball or go to the basketball court or the barbershop or go to the chicken joint or whatever, we know there's only like 4 campaign stops, right, when it comes to the black community. The church, the black church, a chicken joint, right? They always go and get chicken somewhere. And then you'll have a community center slash basketball, like some sort of athletic event. And then the last one is like if they do any cursory Black History Month events, or like cursory NAACP events or something like that. So I'm not, a political operative. I just know, like, when I'm reading and when I'm seeing the coverage, I'm like, oh, okay. They go to the same 4 or 5 places. All right, we know what this is. And so you haven't actually invested in that community, right? And so 60 years of plus of faithful votes, and you have not prioritized these people. And so I'm watching the coverage, and then Sabrina Salvati covered this well already, but, they trot out Bakari Sellers and Van Jones, and I'm like, God. Have you ever looked into the eyes of a sellout and seen how dead it is there? You're sitting here and you're saying, oh, okay, well, the Biden administration and the Democratic Party, they've done this for black people. They've done that for black people. Da, 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 da. No, you did that for everyone, right? The 2 modes are you do things specifically for groups that get in your behind, right? And so during COVID, right, we had a rash of awful violence against the Asian American community, and they got a crime bill. Great for them, right? We should have one too. Because our children are getting attacked in school. Like, I saw a 6-year-old, and I wasn't looking for the video, but you can't always insulate yourself. And this 6-year-old girl getting slammed on the ground by a peace officer in a school. We shouldn't have to deal with that. No one should have to deal with that. All right. So you've got 60 plus years of neglect, damn near no effort by the Democratic Party, because having your shills of choice and cutting them a check, that does nothing for the actual community. Just FYI. And then you bring out Bakari Sellers and Van Jones to tell us, oh, well, no, actually, this thing that helped everyone was specifically for you. And it's like, no, they don't even believe the talking points that they're bringing out now. And so they're like, so our old routine isn't working, so let's just lean into one of the most divisive and toxic parts of it, which is, well, black women, black girl magic. You all do exactly what you're supposed to do. You go to those ballots and you vote for Democrats. But these black men, tisk, 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 they started out, maybe 9 to 10% conservative. If we're looking at when John McCain was running, sorry, I don't have my computer set up. I would have brought up the numbers otherwise. But basically, since they looked at the past 4 election cycles, with 2020 being the last one, and you could see a creep up from black men voting Republican. So from 9% to like it's almost 20% now. And so they're really setting it up to say, oh, if Biden loses, see, it's those black men. They can't get it together. Da 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 da. Like, and how is that supposed to increase Democratic Party engagement? I'm so offended. we live in a system that's done everything in its power to obliterate the black family. And then on the back end of that, you're still provoking or attempting to provoke at least gender discord. Like, stop putting percentages and put actual numbers. What were the actual numbers of black men that voted for Donald Trump? Number one. Number two, notice the ways in which voting for us, for black people, it's weaponized and villainized, really, because we're the only group of people that get called stupid, low information voters, controlled by Russian bots, so on and so forth, right? Now, I have no love for Donald Trump. I would be so happy if he left politics and we wouldn't have to talk about him. But all of that being said, I'm not going to tell someone that they're a low information voter if they vote for Trump, right? Because you realize if you're saying that applies to white people, Asian American people, Native American people, Middle Eastern people, everybody, Latino, Latinx people, everybody that's voting in the US, that would apply. It wouldn't just apply to black people. So, but notice, like, when they bring shills around us, it's, oh, you're a low information voter. You guys are just not, you just don't know what's good for you. Come on. Joe has done so much, right? He's a great guy. He's your friend. You ain't black if you don't vote for Joe. And it's just kind of like, when this all blows up, I hope people like Bakari Sellers and Van Jones and Angela Rye, I'm going to put her in there. There are quite a few of them where I hope you can sleep at night, because you know the arguments that you're making are patently false, right? No, let me take that back. You might know those arguments are patently false, but if you're only hanging out with the other people that work at CNN, yeah, you probably don't know any like regular average black people. So there's that. But it's just like, you want to blame black men that because Joe Biden is either choosing not to campaign or is not in the condition health-wise to campaign, so he's not earning votes. You're accusing him for presenting a platform that is unappealing, not just to black Americans, but to many people, Arab Americans and other folks as well. So we aren't the only other people looking at this situation like, come on. But it's, I'm going to stop talking about this, but it's just, you're showing your contempt for my community and how stupid you think we are by the logic of your talking points. Like, you're not hiding it. And the less you hide it, the more you become like Republicans. And the more you become like Republicans, the more certain people are like, well, what the fuck? You know? And they're going to stay home, or they're going to make another choice, which is not a desirable choice either. But stop calling people low information voters. I can't. And and you know what? Here's the thing too. Yes, Angela Rye is light skinned, but the rest of them, they bring out the brownest Negroes to say this BS. Like, people browner than me to say, well, I think there is some engagement. Some people, they are curious about Trump, but, it's a lot of bots giving them wrong information. So you think the average black person is too stupid to figure out what's a bot and what's not. Do you figure it out every time? No. But your infantilization of our community is just patently offensive. It's insidious. And it's just, we don't actually, we don't have good choices. I was going to say, we don't actually really have, we have choices, but just not a good one. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there. All right. So this has been season 2, episode 19 of the Composite. And Friday is March 1st. So let's see. So if Friday is March 1st, that means the next Friday is March 8th. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot for like March 6th or 7th for the first episode of season 3. I'll start advertising today or tomorrow, and I'm just going to try to use this time in these next few days to, zhuzh. The StreamYard, I like it, but it's just, it takes me a little while, to be honest, to get it set up correctly. And so that's why I've only used it a couple of times. But what I'm hoping is that I can, bring people up, so to speak, so they can say their piece, do some interviews, which I'm still looking for. I have a feeling I will need to pay for interviews, but yeah, hey, we got to get this content going, right? And so I want to interview artists about their process, especially writers and poets. And just to diversify the content, in terms of, I feel like, the first 2 seasons have just been me. But I do go outside. I do engage with the world. And I would like to do that in this space. So thank you for joining me. And like I said, we'll be back March 6th or 7th. And I'll leave an ad on your interwebs. All right. Thanks.